The second core essential of the Christian faith is to recognize the Trinity of the faith. No true Christian can deny that Jesus Christ is God based on what the scriptures say. The Trinity is a fancy word, a fancy theological word that theologians use and toss around. What it means is that God is three different persons, but he is one. How does that work? How does that work? How can God be three different persons but one all at the same time? Well, you and I, we are also three different persons but one at the same time. Remember, in Genesis, God created Adam and Eve in his image and in his likeness. Each person has a body, a soul, and a spirit. So the body is right here. It's what you see. It's what you touch. It's what you smell with. It's your vessel that your being is within and dwelling within. This is your temple body. It's the physicalness of you, right? It's not very hard to understand that. Your your soul has to do with your will, your selfishness, what you want, your soul. The word soul, it means like self or selflessness or selfishness, right? It's what you want. And then your spirit has to do with maturity and wisdom. And so when you look at God, you see the Father, the Son, and the Spirit. Jesus, the Son, is going to be the body of God. The Father will be the soul of God. And the Spirit is going to be the Holy Spirit of God. The Holy Spirit has to do with maturity and wisdom of God. And then the soul or the Father person of God has to do with the authority of God. Jesus makes a comment saying, I only do the will of my Father who is in heaven. What God is saying, what Jesus is saying is, I'm only going to do the will of my soul. Because the soul has to do with self and what your desires are. It's all about what I want, my desires, my soul, what I desire. Think about your soul. That's why Jesus always prays to the Father right before he gets crucified. He's not praying to the Holy Spirit. He's praying to the Father and he says, your will be done, because the Father is the soul of God, and that has to do with the will, the selfishness, the authority of the Godhead. But all three persons are one together, and it's just God. God is one. If you read in John 1, in John chapter 1, verse 1, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him, not anything made that was made. The Word is Jesus. And so Jesus was with God in the beginning, and he was God in the beginning. Jesus is God. In Genesis 1:1, it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That word for God, it means Elohim. The word Elohim is written plural. And what does that mean? It means that if you write out Elohim in English, you're going to put God with an S. And so, quite literally, it's God's. In the beginning, God's, or Elohim. But the reason that it's spelled as God plural, singular in the English is because the Jewish rabbis, they understood that God is one, but they also understood that Moses wrote down Elohim for a purpose, but they did not understand why. And that is a very true story. The rabbis in the Jewish faith do not understand why Moses wrote down Elohim, uh, the plural version of Allah. But then when you go to Genesis 1:26, it says, Elohim said, let us make man in our own image. Now, some heretics, I won't call them pastors or theologians, they're heretics. They will say that the let us part in verse 26 is God speaking to the angels. And God is speaking to the angels saying, let us make man in our own image. Anyone reading the Bible would understand the angels, when they're being described, they do not look like human. And the only time angels came down and created another species was whenever the angels came down in Genesis 5 or 6, and they created the giants. And God saw that it was very evil, and he wipes out mankind from the face of the earth. That's the only time that angels are being involved in creating something like that in the Bible. Genesis 1:26, and Elohim said, Elohim is plural, said, let us make man in our own image, in our own image. Elohim, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, together said, let us. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit spoke to each other and said, let us make man in our own image. Jesus said in John chapter 10, verse 30, and the Father are one. I and the Father are one. He didn't say I and the Father look alike. He said I and the Father are one. The book of John is known as the book that it has the 7 great I am statements of Christ. The reason there's 7 great I am statements of Christ is because every time Jesus said I am, and then you finish the sentence with whatever he said, he's always saying I am, referring back to the great I am that spoke to Moses to the burning bush in the Old Testament. And so every time that Jesus makes this statement, I am, and then finishes the sentence, I am the, the bread of life. I am the door of the sheep. I am the, you finish the sentence. Every time he said, I am, he said, before Abraham, I am. It made the Pharisees mad. It got them really upset because Jesus was not claiming to be a rabbi or a prophet or a great teacher. He wasn't claiming to be a doctor. He was claiming to be God. Jesus was claiming divinity. And so to deny the Trinity is to deny that Jesus Christ is God. And to deny that Jesus Christ is God, you're putting Jesus Christ on the pedestal of a human being who will stand in judgment of God. And so if every Christian on earth is worshiping Jesus Christ as Lord of Lords and King of Kings, but he is not God, we have a very bad problem. You cannot be a Christian and not believe Jesus Christ is God. So that takes out the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Mormons, Muslims. The Muslim faith was started by a Christian missionary named Muhammad. Muhammad started off as a Christian missionary. So did Joseph Smith. But both of them, an angel came and gave them a new gospel, and because of that, they led millions of people astray. They took the sheep of God and just took them straight to the slaughterhouse to be slaughtered. That's what they did. So The second core essential of the Christian faith is the Trinity. You must believe Jesus is God. The Holy Spirit is God. The Father is God. If you don't believe that, you are not a Christian. If your church does not believe that, they have abandoned the faith. I believe T.D. Jakes denies the Trinity. So that means that he's not a Christian. I'm sorry. A lot of y'all like T.D. Jakes, but he denied the Trinity. I believe it was back in 2007 or 2008. He made headlines because he came out sometime in that time period that he no longer believed that Jesus Christ was God. And he was on Fox News or one of the news stations, and I remember my pastor was talking about it. He said, "I don't know how anyone can deny the Trinity, but T.D. Jakes denied the Trinity back then." So you gotta be careful. When you go into these churches, you need to find out what is this church's view on the Trinity. It's very important. Who do they view Jesus is? A good teacher? Or the Son of God, or even more than that, right? What does that mean, Son of God? Because now that sounds like, okay, is he a Son of God, or is he God? That Son of God thing, the term, you gotta remember that when God is trying to explain to mankind who he is. He uses analogies that we can understand. And so the terminology, Son of God, is just a way of God trying to explain, like, Jesus is me. I am Jesus. Like, this is my son. This is my image to the world. This is the best image I can give to mankind. Because if you see God, you won't be able to stand before him, right? Like you're talking about the creator of heaven and earth. And so God gave mankind a visible image of the invisible God. And so that's what it means. Son of God terminology is just like, quite literally, is just the visible image of the invisible God. So it's not that Jesus is the like actual son of God, but the terminology is just Jesus is the visible image of the invisible God. I know it's confusing, you know. We read we read the text like, is he God? Is he the Son of God? Seems like it's contradicting each other. It's not. It's just God is trying to use things in creation to help us understand him to the best of our ability as human beings. You know, Apostle Paul said he knew someone that went up to heaven, and he said that the things that the person saw, they cannot even describe what they saw. There's no words to describe what they saw in heaven. And so when we read and examine the text of the Bible, and we find these like what looks like a contradiction, we have to understand, is there a contradiction, or is God trying to dumb down everything to our level so that we can understand what the text is actually saying? So with that being said, God bless you. I'll see you in the next one.